Queersplaining is brought to you by the wonderful folks who give on patreon.com/queersplaining. Nick and Leah are our newest patrons this week. Thank you so much, friends. Love you lots. Content note for this week: this episode is all about grief, loss, and suicide. Please take care of yourselves, friends. My name is Callie Wright, and this is Queersplaining.
My mom fell down a flight of stairs, and she had to go to the hospital.
This is my friend Alex, and she's going to tell us about her brother, Arthur.
And they did an ultrasound to see if her hips were broken. And they went, there's one side of your iliac crest, there's the heartbeat, there's the other side of the iliac crest. And she and my dad went, whoa, hold on, wait, heartbeat? And that's how she found out she was pregnant at 40 with my little brother. And he was a hell of a surprise. I was 11. I was in 5th grade. I was actually 10 when they found out that she was pregnant, and then I turned 11 right before he was born. I was actually super excited about it. Like, there hadn't really been talk about having another kid because I have my stepbrother, Owen, who's from my stepdad's first marriage, and then there's me. And there hadn't ever been really a discussion about, hey, we're going to have another kid. My mom thought that she wasn't going to have another kid. So when it happened, it was just kind of like, oh, fucking sweet. I'm going to be a big sister. I was so happy about it. There was never a moment where I thought, oh, my parents aren't going to love me as much. They're not going to have as much time for me, because that's just not how my family was. That's not at all how I ever felt. It was just kind of one of those, okay, cool, I have a baby brother now. This is gonna be freaking awesome. And it was great. The first time I remember meeting him was, probably just really shortly after Mom got into the ICU. And he was so small. He was a month early.
Is that why you were in the ICU with him and your mom?
Yeah. She had a C-section, and she had a room off by herself, and they'd taken him to do all the stuff they do to babies in hospitals. And I remember them bringing him in, and he was just so tiny. He was so small. He was only about 6 pounds, I think. 6 pounds, 5 ounces. And I just thought he was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in the world. He was great. And he was such a good kid. I don't remember him crying very much. He was always just fascinated by the world. It was bugs and sticks, and I found this string, and hey, there's some duct tape. Let's see if we can put all this together and make a thing out of it from a very young age. We had a Halloween store come to town, very much like the ones that are starting to pop up now. And they sold scythes, the horrible plastic scythes that break in a week. And he was about 5 or 6, I guess. And he had it for a week and it broke. And then he turned it into something else. He duct taped the head back onto it, and then it broke again, and he made a spear out of it. And it saw life as like 6 different weapons before it finally had to be thrown away. He asked for pipe cleaners and twisty ties, like the ones you put on grocery bags or bread bags. He asked for duct tape and dowel rods for Christmas. That was literally his Christmas list. Box with all of this stuff in it. Maybe some Legos. You know, he would invent these weird little experiments. He'd throw army men over the railings with grocery bags duct taped to them to see if it would work as a parachute. And it did. 90% of the time, it worked. And that was the wild thing, because we didn't have cable or anything, so he wasn't watching like any kid science TV or anything like that. He was just doing it to see if it would work, which was just so wild to watch him go into the yard and pick things up and make things out of them. And
so he was a happy kid?
He was a very happy kid. I don't remember him getting sad very often. I don't remember him telling us he was sad very often or scared. A couple of times where like, oh, there's an alligator under my bed. When he was 6 or 7, and Dad said, okay, what do you want me to do about it? And Arthur said something along the lines of, give me a sword. Because we had plastic swords all around the house, and that's how we dealt with monsters under the bed. We armed ourselves against them. And when he was 7, I got him a rabbit who was instantly dubbed Zeus the Wonder Bunny. And he'd take it with him everywhere. Wore it on his head as a hat. It was in his bed. It was having adventures with him. We still have the rabbit, actually. My mom still has it, which is kind of cool. A little weird. For me, sometimes it's a little weird because I got it for him. I didn't know it to get him for Easter. He was 7 years old, and I was like, okay, well, we don't really sell swords around Easter time. I don't think I can get away with that. So he didn't have a stuffed animal, really. So I went to Toys R Us and found a rabbit, and there it was. That was it. And I left home the first time when he was 7. I was 18. I had just graduated. And I moved here to Kentucky to go to school. It ended up not working out. I was here for 2 years, and then I went back. Then I lived there for another 2 or 3 years, and then I moved to Florida. And it's something that kind of eats at me a little bit in the aftermath is that I left him twice. And I remember him being 7 and sitting on my lap while I was sitting in my grandparents' car, and him crying and telling me that he didn't want me to go. That was the first time I really remembered him being sad. Like physically seeing it, not I scraped my knee, not I'm scared, but actually seeing him sad. It's the very first time I really remember it. But when I moved back, he was in, God, Christ, he was in middle school. And he was doing okay. He was doing, like, he was starting to get into photography, and he was starting to get into a bunch of other stuff. He loved being outside still, even though we'd moved from a house that was more in the country to a house that was more in town. We still had like a creek by the house, and there was a golf course that we could run around in as long as none of the golfers were there. And he and my dad would go to the C&O Canal, and they'd walk the canal and take pictures. And that happened a little bit more after I left the second time. He got really into photography. He bought his own camera. He bought his own lenses. He put together a portfolio. He was trying to get into an art school, like the only arts high school that is in the town that I grew up in. And he ended up not getting in, which was rough. That was really hard on him. And through all this, as I would call him, I'd talk to him every once in a while. Not very much, because I was going through college, and then I was living down here with my dad, and then I was moving out, and I got an apartment, and all kinds of stuff. When we saw him, as much as I could, we would go up and we'd see my mom and dad and the brothers, if Owen was there. And the last time I saw him was right after my very good friend Ariel's wedding. It was September 2016. And I remember he had gotten so fucking tall. Like, pushing 6 feet at 15 years old. And we had fun. We had a lot of fun. I taught him how to make meatballs for the first time. And he showed me his portfolio. He was getting involved with the robotics club at his school, and there was so much stuff he was so excited about. He was playing around with heat-sensitive cameras to make images of like, oh, there's a handprint in the middle of this seemingly normal situation, and playing with editing software a little bit. And he seemed, oh, this is the most cliche thing I'm going to say this entire podcast, this entire interview. He seemed perfectly happy. He seemed perfectly normal. It was fine. He seemed okay. And then a couple months later, so September, October, November, just 2 months later, he was gone. And that was very weird.
Tell me why you say weird. Because there are a lot of adjectives that I can imagine apply in this situation. What makes you think of weird first?
I was suicidal when I was 13. I guess weird is not the right word. Surreal for me. Because when I was 13, and I was being bullied, and I really did think that the world would be better without me. I was getting ready to step out in front of a semi-truck. I was ready to do it. And he came up to me. He was 3. And he just hugged me. And he said, "Sissy, I love you." And so it was surreal because he had saved me and now he was gone. That just did not seem right to me. The day before Thanksgiving, I was working at a shoe store, and we were getting ready for Black Friday. So I'd finished stocking my store. I was going to Tonks's store. Tonks, my sister. And I was getting ready to take down the garbage. I got a text from my mom that said, "Hey, please call me when you get off of work." I hate it when people text me like that, because usually it means that something is wrong. When Trent, my stepdad, had quadruple bypass surgery, I got a text like that. So I immediately called her, and the first thing out of my mouth was, "Who died?" And she told me, "Please don't talk like that." And then she said that my brother was dead. And I thought, for a solid 5 minutes, I thought she was talking about Owen. Because Owen didn't have his driver's license at the time. He biked everywhere, and he worked inner city. So it was one of those, holy shit, somebody's run over Owen. And I was freaking out, and I asked her how Owen's mom was, and she said, "Sweetie, no, Arthur is dead." And from that point, I don't really remember much. I know that I couldn't stand up anymore. I probably made a very loud noise because Tonks was suddenly there, and I couldn't tell her what happened, so I had to give her the phone. At some point, I got my phone back, and I got up, and I went outside. And then I came back, and she was talking to our district manager. And our district manager said, "You really don't have to come into work tomorrow." And I said, "Yes, I do, because if I'm left alone, I don't know what I would have done." I couldn't drive. We had a couple of different plans for getting home, and Tonks drove us in the end. I had to call my friends. I had to call Ariel. who was one of my best friends in high school. I had to call Sam, who was one of my best friends after I got out of high school. I had to call Ben and Brandy, who I've known now for, God, almost 20 years. And I had to tell them that he was dead. The next couple of days was a blur. I remember going to work. I remember Nick, who was a friend then and is now my partner, was amazingly supportive of me during that time. Very understanding and very actually helpful. Not asking if I was okay, but asking, do you need anything? Go take a walk. Get a breath of air. Which I appreciated and appreciate still to this day, probably more than I can say, because I hate people asking, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you doing? Especially in that situation, it's, well, my brother just shot himself in the head. How do you think I'm doing? Which I think I only ever said to somebody once. What happened was the day before Thanksgiving, they were gonna go to our grandparents' house and do Thanksgiving early because they had something that they were gonna do on the 24th. And they came home and Mom was the one that found him. So my parents live on the second floor apartment of a 2-story building. It's a very small 2-story building, but 2 floors. So you have to go up the stairs and turn right to see the living room. And if you go up the stairs and you turn right, and then you look to the right, there's the couch. And that's where he was.
What do you know about the circumstances leading up to it? Was there like a triggering event, like this specific bad thing happened that triggered it, or was it something that built up over time? Or?
So it took a long time for things to get put together to see part of the picture, because we still don't have all of the picture. He did not leave a note, so we don't have it in his own words. As far as we have been able to put together, he was being severely bullied at school, and he was protecting one of his friends from retaliation by not talking about the bullies, as far as I understand it. His friend said that he was being bullied a lot. It was kind of relentless, but he never talked about it. He never told Mom. He never told Dad. He never told me or Owen or Grandma or Grandpa or anybody. And we don't know what it was. We don't know if it was they said something. We don't know if they threatened to do something to him. We have no idea. I'm not mad at him. Everyone told me when it happened, oh, you're gonna be mad at him for a little while. I'm not mad at him. I can't be mad at him for doing that, because I understand why he did it. I'm never gonna be mad at him for that. He's gone, and that was his choice. And that was the only thing that he felt he had left. That was his choice to make. I'm not mad at him. I'm very sad that he's gone. I'm devastated. Earlier this week, I remembered what his hair smelled like when I hugged him.
What did his hair smell like?
Like sunshine and little boy. And occasionally, like really bad Suave shampoo. Like that kind of acrid, almost strawberry smell that just you sit there and you're like, oh, that's totally, that, no. He always kind of smelled like he'd been outside. Even if he hadn't been outside, he always he's managed to smell like sunshine every day. And I remember I'd hold him, he was so bony. He was so skinny and bony. And I just buried my face in his hair. And I had to cry in a parking lot for 30 minutes because I'm never going to do that again. Grief is extremely personal. And for me, initially it was crying at the drop of a hat. It was waking up the morning of the 24th and remembering that he was dead. And then crying. And then driving to work. Seeing the shoes I was going to buy him for Christmas and crying. And just little things here and there. And then it was insomnia. Days at a time. I wouldn't sleep. Because I'd dream about him.
What would you do?
Read, watch movies, drink coffee, not sleep. And grief also on me looks like a really bad haircut and a terrible manicure, which is what I was wearing to his funeral. It was poofy, bad hair. Awful. But we went to the funeral. The funeral is the only time I was ever mad about anything. After he died, like immediately after he died, Arthur had been baptized. He had made that choice when he was 13, I think, to be baptized in my grandmother's church. And I know that it is a minister's job to come to Jesus. Jesus loves you, blah, blah, blah. All those things. I'm not Christian. I'm pagan. So that doesn't really resonate with me. But the thing that really made me mad before he opened it up for eulogies from family and friends and talking about, Arthur and his life and that he was such a good kid, and he turned it into a come to Jesus thing. And I know that's his job, but there's a time and a place for that. And it is not at the funeral of a 15-year-old boy. I was sitting there in the pew and I really just wanted to throw a hymnal at his head. Because that was...
I mean, was that a reflection of who your brother was? I mean, you said that he had made the decision to get baptized, but was he a deeply religious guy at all? Or?
I don't actually know. I know that he went to church with our grandmother frequently. I also know that he was raised in a house full of pagans. He had a Thor's hammer necklace that he wore. He had me. I'm a polytheist pagan. We would talk about that. And we have a Green Man statue that hangs above one of the doorways in our house. We have Tibetan prayer flags. We have this amalgamation of faiths in our house. So I don't know if he was extremely faithful or extremely Christian. I know that he liked the peace that was there and the people. He went a lot for the people that were there. Because he'd been going to church with Grandma since he was a wee nugget.
And so the minister did the whole come to Jesus thing.
I was so mad. I couldn't believe that he would do that to Arthur. I was never more happy that we were Protestant, that he was Protestant, because if Arthur had been Catholic, we wouldn't have had a funeral. Like, that hit me in the middle of the service, too. I was really glad that we weren't Catholic. We didn't do that. But it was just one of those things where I'm sitting there. I've known Pastor Len since... long time. Since before I was in high school. Maybe before Arthur was born, even. But I don't remember how long I've known him. But to sit there in the front pew and hear him go from, it's devastating that this boy is gone, to come into the arms of Jesus was just kind of a weird disconnect that made me so mad. I couldn't understand why he would do that. And I talked to my mom about it. We talked about this yesterday. That it's just his job. I still don't care that it's his job. It was a funeral. It's not a place to say, come to God. He'd already come to God in your eyes. Why do you need to say, come to God? He was already there. And,
Did it get any better? The funeral, I mean?
It did. We had a lot of his friends were there. My friend Ariel made it. She told one of my favorite stories. When he was about 6, she told the anecdote. He was 6 years old. We got this massive ice storm. Everything was covered in ice. And Ariel had come over because it was a snow day. I wasn't going to school. No one was going to school. And we built ice sculptures, really bad ice sculptures of the Triforce in the snow and ice. And the funeral did get better. It ended on a note of his friends, his family, people who knew him outside of the situations of church, talking about, frankly, what a fantastic kid he was. And it was good. It was very good. And then we went to see Moana afterwards because I couldn't stop crying. And I'm not sure it was a good idea because I haven't been able to watch the movie since. My sister thought that I needed one of the lessons that was in the movie. And I did. I did need it. But now I can't watch the movie.
What was the lesson?
The grandmother dies. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen the movie that's been out for 3 years. The grandmother dies. And the lesson that she tells Moana, that Moana learns, is that she's always going to be with her. And I know that. But it was nice to hear it from an outside perspective and someone who isn't my family telling me that. And good. It was good. It was good for me to hear. But I'm never going to be able to watch the movie. Which is a shame because it's a great film. And then after we got home, I was very numb. I was numb from a lot of things. I didn't want to read. I didn't want to write. I didn't want to play video games or watch movies or be outside or exist. I wanted a black hole to swallow me. Slowly got better. It took a couple of months for me to feel anything again. And
when you started to feel again, what kind of feelings were they?
Sorrow. It was the extremes, I would say. I would feel very, very sad, and then I would see something that would make me laugh, and I'd be extremely happy. And there was no middle ground. The happy would last for 5-10 minutes, and then I'd be very, very sad again.
What kind of specific things would trigger the extremes of emotion?
I'd say seeing people experience something joyful, or seeing something funny, watching cat videos on YouTube, which I still do to this day, or reading a funny comment that somebody left on something.
Just like simple everyday stuff.
Just simple everyday things. And then the things that would make me extremely sad, or I would see... I found the hoodie that I was going to give him for Christmas. Cried into it for a solid hour. Like, just little things. I couldn't wear my pair of... I have a pair of shoes that we had that matched. I couldn't wear them for... Actually, I just started wearing them again this year. So almost 2 years later. I should not put them on. I couldn't even look at them. without feeling like a black hole was just kind of trying to eat me. And then it evened out after a while.
I feel like the storybook moment that everyone wants to hear about is like, you just like wake up one day and you're okay. And I feel like that's probably not real.
Oh, it's not. 2 years on, it's much easier to talk about. I've had 2 years of space between knowing that he's never going to grow up past 15 to get used to that. I've had 2 years. And there, as far as I'm experiencing, there is no storybook moment where everything goes back to normal. It's, last September was rough because it was the year anniversary of Trent's quadruple bypass. And we all decided to get together and we went on the canal. We walked up the canal. I got a tattoo. It's a depressing tattoo. It's also hilarious.
What is it?
It's, I'll actually show it to you. It is a Minecraft fire. And that means a lot because Arthur's first video game that he ever played all by himself was Minecraft. He built a dynamite tower into the sky and then blew it up. Crashed the world. It was fantastic. And I got the tattoo and it's, we make jokes about it because it makes me feel better. Like, do you need some mood lighting and I'll reveal the tattoo? Or there's a picture on some platform of social media where we're roasting a tiny marshmallow over it on a toothpick. Tell ghost stories around a campfire. Like little things like that I think is so irreverent, and it's so at the same time exactly what he would have wanted out of that. If he knew I was going to get a memorial tattoo for him, that's exactly what he would have expected. He wouldn't want it to be too serious. I didn't want it to be too serious.
So you talked about the days and weeks and months after that roller coaster ride, going from just like the extremes of sorrow to the heights of like manic, like joy and happiness. You said eventually it evened out. Do you remember the first time you just felt like just regular happy? Was that even a thing, or is it always different after that?
It's always a little bit different after that. I don't remember exactly when I leveled out. It was a while. If I had to put a number on it, like 9-10 months, where it was just one of those. I woke up this morning and I don't want to cry. I also don't want to laugh like a madman because the leaves are green. It was just one of those, okay, I guess we're gonna see how long this lasts. Because at that point, it was extreme or extreme. It was one or the other. I didn't have middle ground, and I had middle ground out of the blue. Like, I guess it probably built up over time, the not being either numb or super sad or super happy. But I don't remember it. I just remember those 3 specific sets of feeling, and then it was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna poke my head out of this foxhole and look around and see anything. No? Okay, I'm gonna go get coffee. Kind of a deal. And it's the thing that's gotten me through a lot of it is the world will never be okay again. But I will be. Someday. I'll be okay again.
Alex, thank you so much for sharing Arthur's life with us, and thank you for sharing your life with us. If you want to support the show, check out patreon.com/queersplaining and consider a donation to help make the show happen. I'm planning my 2019, and a lot of that includes traveling to places with amazing people who have important stories to tell, and that can only happen thanks to those of you who support us there. If that's not doable, you can share the show around to your friends, mention us on social media, tell your friends, take their phones and subscribe them to the show. Everything helps, and everything makes a difference. Before I go, I want you to know that if you're lost, you're hurting, you're scared, if you feel like no one cares and no one understands, you need to know there's a community out here who loves you, cares for you, knows that you're capable of amazing things, and that you are worthy of love. If you're struggling, please don't be afraid to reach out. Until next time, friends, my name is Callie Wright, and this is Queersplaining.